my video on?
No, there's no video.
Do you want me to put my video on? I'm in. Okay.
Christina, you're muted.
Well, that would help us in getting started. Thank you for that. Welcome to Treasurer Yi, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Really excited to be talking about an extremely important topic. We are joined obviously by a very special guest, Arizona State Treasurer Kimberly Yi, and soon we'll be diving into the topic of how to prioritize your savings plan. There's a lot of information that I'm sure you are ready to share with us. You know, it definitely can feel overwhelming to think about our savings goals. There's so many things we're being told to save for, and you know, I'm just excited to get your perspective as, you know, the Treasurer of Arizona on those things. So first, before we jump in and I introduce our speaker, I'm going to go ahead and launch a poll just for everyone, for us to learn a little bit more about who is here with us today and where you're at from a savings perspective. So you should see that pop up. Go ahead and answer, and we'll share the results here in about 15 seconds. So the two questions we have, what have you already started saving for? And then I'm most excited to learn about. Let's go ahead and share. I know not everyone has had a chance to vote, but we do have a good number of votes in. So let's take a look. Looks like a lot of people have started saving for retirement and also short-term needs, which is awesome. But also looks like they're excited to learn about retirement savings, balancing, 529 plans, which is definitely what we are here to talk about today. So just want everyone to be aware, if you're new here, Copper State Credit Union has 8 branches in Arizona, over 42,000 members who trust us to do their banking. And we offer everything that you'd expect from a financial institution and more. So if you're not already a member, please check us out. Our values focus on family, empowerment, discovery, and excitement, which, you know, surprise, surprise, all can be part of your financial life. You know, sometimes you think about finances as being boring, but certainly not for me, and probably not for you either, Treasury. And I do want to take a moment to just introduce her. So as State Treasurer, Kimberly Yi oversees the cash management of Arizona's $53 billion state budget and payments to agencies, local governments, schools. Upon taking office in January 2019, assets under management were at $15.4 billion. And today, assets are standing at over $23 billion. So that's an increase of over 50% in just about 2 years, which is very significant. Treasurer Yi led the effort to pass a state law requiring students to have financial education in high school before graduation, and was the first state treasurer to have visited all 15 counties in Arizona during the first year of her administration. Born and raised in Arizona, Kimberly Yi is the first Asian American elected to a statewide office in Arizona's history. She's the first Chinese American Republican woman to win a major statewide office in the history of the United States. She served for 8 years in the Arizona legislature in the House and Senate. She also served as Senate Republican Majority Leader, the second woman elected to this position in Arizona's history, following U.S. Justice Sandra Day O'Connor, who served the position in 1973, 44 years earlier. Treasurer Yi has been named one of the nation's 25 most influential women in state politics by Congressional Quarterly's Roll Call. She was also featured nationally in Lifetime Television's Her America, featuring one woman from each state making a difference in America. Prior to elected office, she worked in the administrations of 2 governors, Pete Wilson and Arnold Schwarzenegger, and former state treasurer Dean Martin. Kimberly is a graduate of Pepperdine University, where she earned degrees in English and political science. She holds a master's degree in public administration from Arizona State University, where she was a member of the Honor Society of Phi Kappa Phi. Kimberly is married with 2 young children and active in her church and community. Thank you so much again for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Christina, for having me with your wonderful organization and your 42,000 credit union members.
Absolutely. So my first question for you is a little bit more general, but it's about financial literacy as a whole. It's something that you're clearly very passionate about, having created the Financial Education Task Force and putting into action those updates to the high school graduation requirements. So can you tell me more about why this topic is so important to you?
Oh, absolutely. Well, it was many years ago, probably 15 years ago, I was working for a former state treasurer. His name was Dean Martin. And one of the things that I did in my capacity was to go out to various schools, whether they be K through 12 or universities, and speak about the importance of managing your money. And one of the sessions that I did at a university was during their new orientation week. And as I was walking to my seminar, I was walking towards the ballroom, and in the hallway, there were numerous credit card companies lined up, each table signing up new students for one credit card after another. And it was visually for me, sort of the scope of where our issues lay, which was, I wanted to ask these students as they entered my seminar, how many of you just signed up for your first credit card? And so many hands were raised. And the second question I asked was, how many of you have ever had a financial education class in high school? And the hands were not raised. And that really showed me uniquely how much work we have to do and why we have a student debt crisis. So as the years passed on, that was when I was working for the former state treasurer 15 years ago. I served in the legislature, and one of the first bills I wanted to sponsor was putting this into our classrooms, because it really starts from the very beginning. And if you're not getting that in your home setting, and not all kids do, you really want to be able to teach the basics in that classroom. So I put a bill together, which is now, it's been state law since probably 2011, which requires our state standards, our academic standards, which are benchmarks for what teachers are asked to teach in that grade level before they move a student on to the next, to have a standard on financial education, which means that it's grade appropriate. So in kindergarten, that you may provide options for teaching piggy bank savings that's appropriate to that 5-year-old. But when you're in high school, you can teach a little bit more in-depth discussions of, managing your money, like having a checkbook, opening a checking account, savings, budgeting. And so these are all now in state law from a academic standards practice. But when we tried to get an actual class into, the schools, we actually hit some roadblocks. And it was very interesting because so many of my friends from the credit union world came alongside me. We testified, we shared the story of reasons why we need this. But there are those who have their plates full in our classrooms. So it just didn't go through as a bill. But then later on, I became state treasurer. And in 2019, when I took my oath of office, the first thing I shared with my new administration was that financial education, financial literacy, and money management was going to be a priority. Among the many things that we do in our office, this was going to be a priority. So in the by the spring of 2019, in my first year, we put that law on the books, which is— I love it. Yes, it was 1184, which you referenced. It allows for high schools now, it requires high schools to teach at least one semester of financial education before a child graduates from high school. And that was fit into that one semester already required for economics. So a district can teach economics alongside financial education, which are two separate things, but very important. And so this now allows for a young person to get out into the real world with their new high school graduation degree, to be able to have this real world knowledge and skills to survive with money in your pockets, and being able to just the basics. Many students who are in our classrooms don't know the first thing about the consequences of not paying off your credit card. And if they don't learn that, they will fall into a spiral of debt. And none of us want that. And so what I have done with our friends in the credit union community, by the way, I mean, I'm a longtime member of a credit, my children, when they were born, I took their new funds that they got from their baby gifts and created accounts in my local credit union. So I believe in what you do from a personal standpoint. And so I've actually, come alongside some credit unions across the state of Arizona, hand in hand with students and going into those classrooms to talk about savings and being able to share with them, guess what? You have a credit union right here in your school neighborhood that you can start your accounts as early as, elementary school. And you can start compounding that interest. It's amazing what we can do when we work on these partnerships together.
I love that so much. The earlier they can start and learn about the value of savings, the better. And, that just connects so well to what we're going to talk about today. I really want to dive in on our topic if we can. So savings. I could sit here and rattle off so many different types of things that everyone should be saving for. Right. Oh, emergency. You need to save up for this goal or that goal. Do you want to take a vacation? Save up for that. Down payment on a house, retirement. And everyone's, probably like, oh my goodness, stop, right? It's too many things. It's so much for us to keep track of. So if you had to choose one of these savings types that everyone should make a first priority, what would that be? I mean, you manage $53 billion a year, so you're the one I want to hear it from.
Oh, it's a great question, especially now, because we just came out of a year that was, unpredictable. And these are times where if you don't have an emergency savings set aside, you really can feel very vulnerable. And so that would be my recommendation, is that first and foremost, to establish an emergency savings account or a fund that, you can start with very little if that's what you have, but just start it. And when you have that money put aside and you put a little in every month, it actually starts to grow. So on that rainy day, or that situation where you don't expect an expense, you have that money already set aside. And
we're not talking about my need to go to Target, right? Like that's not my emergency savings. Just double checking.
Exactly right. And I have to say that, we are entering the fall, and soon there will be the holidays. And so what a perfect time now to be able to start thinking about that, because what happens is there are cycles throughout the year. We all are, moms and dads, and we have our families, we have different things, but we're all busy. And then once those obligations financially come, sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, it's already here. I've got to do all of this, and I don't have the funds set aside for it.
Right.
Or it could be your emergency fund for just you. You could set aside different ones. You can have the ones that are your emergency funds that you do not touch unless, it's an unexpected expense that you would never predict. Then you can have the ones that you put forward, you put a fund aside for just holiday spending, or, when the expenses they grow actually at the later part of the year, because you've got a lot of things that come up that cost a little bit more. And so these are the things that you can put aside so that when those months come, you're ready. And so we actually in my office have done a number of tips for savings during the holidays, because you want to be ready for that. You also want to be very intentional with your purchases. If your spending is lighter, then you can maybe afford a little more. And so you have to be intentional when you walk into a mall or a store. Only visit the aisles that you want to, because when you start window shopping, it gets a little dangerous. And then also start really tightening up where you need to, because if you have some extra expenses that are just bonuses for you, like an extra latte or 2 or 3 or 4 during the week, maybe you say, gosh, I'm going to not do 3 this week. And that money is set aside for my savings. That's going to turn into even more later on. So those are just some tips that we provide from our office sometimes. And we actually have an education savings portal. So it's a financial education resource center on aztreasury.gov. And if you have a need, there's different categories there. And one of the things that, we've done with our task force is to go and reach out to various communities to share this message.
That's so awesome. I'm glad that you guys are doing it. I'm glad that's their focus. And from a perspective of someone watching today, I might think that, okay, you're telling me to save up for an emergency, and that's all well and good. I know I need to have that amount, but it's really hard to start. It's really hard to put money aside on a monthly basis or a weekly or whatever it is. And that is the hard part, right? So do you have any advice for folks who are just starting out, trying to start saving? Any tips to make it easier?
Yes. Well, first of all, it really, savings is for everyone. It could be at any age. So if you're a parent out there, the first thing that I would recommend as a parent of young children is start teaching this early in your home. And they could be, little guys who might, let's just say you give them a little chore, but it creates the sense of earning money at a young age, because when you earn your own money, you appreciate it more. And so you spend it more responsibly. It doesn't just fall from the sky. So that's the first principle is, teach those skills at home and make it fun. If you're an adult and you're really struggling, well, where do you even begin? Or maybe you're already in debt and you don't even know where to begin. Well, $10, $15, $25, whatever it is actually money to start the process. And you would need to just start saving small, save frequently. It doesn't have to be every week, right? I mean, you're starting where you can in any amount. And again, you make your budget. Most people are pretty normal. I mean, you know what you spend on every month. And if you don't, then go look at your credit card statement and there's some consistency there. So you're going to know what your average spending is. And if you feel like you're spending more than you make, then that's a problem. So you have to start cutting down on what your expenses are. Maybe you need to take a look at, not every month of whatever it is, maybe it's every other month, right? So those are some things where you can cut back and start slimming down if you are wanting, as naturally people do, wanting to spend more than what they actually have. Also, paying off your debt is very, very important. So if you are in a situation where, you're already struggling to pay down what you already are what's due, you've got to start paying that down. And you can do it in increments. Just start. The basic thing is just to start. And
once you start, it feels good, right?
Exactly.
It feels good to be making progress. It helps us continue to make progress.
That's right. And that is really, there's so many different baby steps that you can look. There are so many tips online. I mean, our office has these resources on our aztreasury.gov website. But I am a big fan of Dave Ramsey, and he has these baby steps that actually go, just to be able to save $1,000 for your first emergency fund. There's different ways that you can do this, and there's so many different ideas. The other thing is to certainly make sure you reward yourself, right? Because when you do this is a big deal for some, and you want to be able to say, okay, if I save whatever it is, $50 a month more than I normally have, treat yourself. Maybe you can just treat yourself, do something to make it rewarding for you as well.
Yeah, because you can't be, absolutely perfect on your budget all the time, because you'll get burnt out. So leaving a little wiggle room sometimes for that reward, I love that. That's such a great tip.
Absolutely.
So I want to move on and talk about, because you talked a little bit about emergency savings. You talked about how setting up different savings goals for different things you want to accomplish or want to do or enjoy. So the big question today that I have heard from so many people is, it's hard as a parent to make that decision between saving for retirement and saving for your kids' education, right? We feel like it's one or the other, and we know how expensive tuition is now. I know what it was 10 years ago when I went to school, and can only imagine how much it's going to be in several more years when my own kids are going. So how do you recommend prioritizing between retirement savings and an education savings plan?
I think that you can do both. And, there are often times where you try to say, okay, it's either one or the other, but it shouldn't have to be. A famous economist once said there are no solutions, there are only trade-offs. Well, I will tell you that there has to be solutions for each family. And it's really important not only to save for your retirement, but to also have that responsibility of providing those resources for your children's education, and that is something that you can do, hand in hand. So one of the things that our office does is help families to do just that from the education savings side. In October of 2020, I took over the AZ 529 Education Savings Plan. Many of you know this is kind of like the 401k, but it's for the education side. And it used to be run, in a commission office. Now it's run by my office in the state treasury. And in October of last year, we immediately wanted to get this education plan in the hands of so many families who have never gone to college before. Because oftentimes it is such a financial burden that they wouldn't even think, if they've never had anyone in their family go to college, that they wouldn't think they have that opportunity, but they do. And that's the message we've been sending across the state in every zip code that we can, in so many diverse communities, in their languages, by the way. We've translated our brochures to Spanish. We have a wonderful partnership with the Navajo Nation, and now it's in Navajo. And we have built out this program from a marketing standpoint so that we have now gained, just from October last year, 11,600 new accounts. And that's huge. So those are new accounts, meaning new savings opportunities for families in their higher education. And
that is incredible.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
And what's really great is that this is not just your traditional university or community college higher education plan. It's for vocational school, apprenticeship programs, so many vocational programs that we have out there for your non-traditional university setting. And that's the message we want to provide. It also isn't just, let's say you're a parent, it doesn't have to just be for your child. A grandparent can open accounts for their grandchildren and nieces and nephews. You can even open it for yourself. So let's say, especially after COVID, many people have relooked at their industry that they've been working in,
and their careers,
and they're refocusing. They want to do something different, maybe more conducive to their family life. And so they are now re-educating themselves in an occupation, in an industry that is new to them, and they have to go back to school. Well, guess what? An Education 529 account is allowing people to do this for their own educational needs as well. And so it's never too soon or too late, to start. And again, we have a dedicated website for this also for those watching, az529.gov. And this is wonderful. You have options there for any type of financial situation you might be in, to be able to put that money aside, whether it's, again, $25 to $100, but whatever fits your financial needs, we have those options for you.
And there are some significant benefits to a 529 plan, right? So
that's great.
A lot of us are familiar with retirement accounts, as we saw in the poll.
Right.
Some of us are already starting to save for retirement, but with an Education 529, we don't necessarily know some of the details or some of the benefits that go along with that. So can you give us just kind of the highlights there?
Well, there's so many different tax benefits for a 529 plan. So just from the state of Arizona, you are able to get a tax deduction each year if you have an investment in an AZ 529 plan. Starting next week, it's September 29th, the deduction will be $2,000 per beneficiary, per individual taxpayer. Of course, that's $4,000 per married couple filing together. So those are some tax benefits to be able to open these accounts. Additionally, you can have, let's say you have a sister or a brother that they're the aunt and uncle of your child, right? And they're interested also in a savings account. They can open an AZ 529 account from another state. So we actually have account holders from other states.
Okay.
Yes, and so let's just say, because we get questions, what if your child goes to out of state for college? Can these funds be transferred out of state? Absolutely, as long as it's an accredited higher education institution. And I love
it includes vocational school. There's such a variety of different ways it can go. And I have to say, I love that number of 11,000 accounts about over the past year or so. I visualize that as potentially 11,000 more kids
Isn't that
going
great?
to higher education one day. So,
And what I love about it, and it really touches me, is that so many of these families they are first generation higher education families. So they've never had a child go to college before. But because we've marketed this in a way that's easy to understand, that shows the fact that you can only, $15 aside each month really grows over time.
yeah.
And then we've also moved our messaging to nonprofit areas that really work with lower income families to help them understand that the ways out for awesome opportunities, endless opportunities, is to start saving early so that you have the finances available when the time comes for your child. And it's really, it's inspiring to see the numbers. We've also brought this to an essay contest. We had a fifth grader essay contest to show kids in elementary school that they can open up their 529 accounts with their families and win $529 if they win the essay contest. So we have this across the state, 15 counties. And so, we're just trying to make it fun. Savings should be fun for any age group.
It really should be, and it can be. We're coming close to the end of our time today, so I really want to make sure that you have a moment. If you had to choose one piece of advice to share with everyone listening today, what would that be?
Oh, there's so many different. First of all, I want to thank you for the credit union community and all that you do within your communities, because it really is amazing. And as I shared from my personal experiences, from the very beginning, when a family gets connected to what you do, it really makes a difference, because it really is a relationship that you build. And
it is.
When you build those community relationships with families just right there where you are, you can change their entire lifestyle. Because one of the things is, when you start, you bring them in. Have you learned about, our piggy bank savings or whatever it is? This brings them, a whole new resource that allows them to save early. It allows them to start budgeting. And it really does. And so our mission at the State Treasurer's Office is the very same, is that getting that financial education awareness out to fit the needs of our unique families in Arizona is all, we want to do, because it really does, in my opinion, as we further educate those to manage their money in a smart way, it affects the overall economy of our state. It affects our neighborhoods, and how people pay their bills. And we won't see those short sales that we did, so many years ago, because they couldn't pay their mortgages. All of the things affect each other. And so I just want to thank you for all that you do. I would love to invite you all to partner with our office. We can go and read Curious George together. And he has a book. There's a Curious George book that, how Curious George saves his pennies. And then your credit can hand out one of your, goodie bag things that you do, right, with your logo on it. And you all can send your message of how you can help those schools in those communities as well. And we've done that across the state, and we welcome that alongside your community as well.
Yeah, I love it. I was a teacher before I worked at a credit union, so it's definitely a topic near and dear to my heart.
Awesome.
Here at the credit union, we value financial wellness, so highly. We're here every month. We have webinars. We have a lot of resources on our website. I am going to open Q&A. So if any Zoom participants, if you guys are on and you have questions for the treasurer and you want to send those over, you can do that in the Q&A feature. We'll see if anyone has questions specifically for you about the topics that we've covered today. But I do also want to ask, obviously this is a quest of yours to get Arizonans fluent in financial literacy. So credit unions and members of the credit union, what can we do? What can we do to help? What should we be doing on a daily basis?
Well, I think what you all are doing is amazing. And, my office has this mission of continuing to advance awareness of financial education. And we always love the input that we see on the ground. We have a financial literacy task force that meets quarterly. The task force hits multiple areas, not just our K through 12 students in our classrooms, but we really want to touch those who are in our veterans and military community, senior citizens who are struggling with a single income budget. We've already worked with the Department of Economic Security and those who might be on government assistance and TANF. We've now opened up an option for, as they are preparing their workforce requirements, that they take a financial literacy course as well. So we really want to help so many different communities. And if you have a program or an outreach network that we can partner with, we would love to do that. And we welcome any assistance, as well as if you want to partner together and go out and speak to groups. Again, you all have a marketing plan probably just so that you can scope out new customers, but all we want to do is just get the message out that financial education and managing your money in a smart way is the important thing to do from the standpoint of growing our economy and keeping it responsible. So again, I don't have anything specifically other than we welcome that partnership.
Yeah, absolutely. And we really value our current members who are here as well as potential members, but everything that we offer in financial wellness is open to everyone regardless of membership. I have a great question here, if you don't mind.
Please.
Someone asked, if I open a 529 or 529 for my child and they don't end up going to college, what will happen to the money in the 529?
Great question. Fareed Bailey, I want to introduce him. He's going to turn on his video. He does our day-to-day 529, and this question does come up. It's okay if you decide on a different set of plans, and the beneficiary can be moved to a different name. Fareed, if you'd like to further respond.
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Treasurer, and thank you, Christina, for having us here. A great question. You have several options if your child's plan for attending, post-secondary opportunities changes. You can certainly change the beneficiary to someone else in your family. As the treasurer mentioned, you can change the beneficiary to yourself, for example, for continuing education expenses. So again, a lot of flexibility there. If you were to withdraw funds in that scenario, if there were no other option, then as with a 401k or an IRA, you would have to take the standard tax penalty on that, since it would be for a non-educational purpose. But those are the options available.
Thank you.
Very good. And I know you guys mentioned this briefly, but I'll just make sure we get an answer again in case someone missed it. Can Arizona 529 accounts be used to fund education in another state?
Yes, they may use this in any other state as long as it's accredited. And there is a list that we would be able to provide for those types of questions. Again, we can even accept out-of-state residents with an AZ 529 plan. So
Great.
There's a lot of flexibility there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we are just about out of time today, but I really appreciate you taking the time, Treasurer Yee, to come on and talk to us. Thank you, Fareed. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We do have a link for you to visit on our website. It's just a quick survey about the webinar today, and we did create a free download for you that breaks down savings goals, right? And how to prioritize them between short-term savings, retirement savings, and then education savings. We have links to all of the treasurer's, the things she mentioned today, AZ Treasury, as well as the 529 website. So we would love if you took a look at that. That is sent over in the chat, and you should receive an email at the end of the session as well. So thank you everyone again for joining, and thank you, Treasurer Yee. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.